Disappearance of the Semite, how a linguistic identity was politicized, racialized, and lost.
A thousand voices lost in the sand, words carved in stone by a ghostly hand. Echoes whisper through the desert's face. Time hides the key to the sacred.
1. Introduction to the concept of Semitism. This introduces the foundational premise of my treatise that the term Semite, originally a linguistic classification, has undergone dramatic shifts in meaning due to political, racial, and ideological forces. I explored the original intent behind the term, its development in 18th and 19th century European philology, and how its scope has narrowed over time. It sets the stage for the historical unraveling of a once inclusive identity. Preface. The word Semite once carried a linguistic and cultural resonance that spoke to shared histories, overlapping traditions, and common roots among a diverse group of peoples. Today, that resonance has been obscured, manipulated, and in many cases, erased, replaced by politically charged narratives that have severed the term from its philological origins and weaponized it in ideological battles. This series emerges from a pressing need to recover and clarify that lost meaning. As debates over identity, race, and history become increasingly polarized, the category of the Semite has become a phantom in public discourse, invoked selectively, often misleadingly to serve modern agendas. But behind the distortions lies a rich and complex tapestry of connections between ancient tongues and peoples, between religious lineages and political claims, between colonial ambitions and between contemporary struggles for recognition. What happened to the Semite? How did a term grounded in language, families, and cultural geography become a moniker almost exclusively associated with one group to the erasure of others who equally inherit that lineage? And what are the consequences for Jews, Arabs, and the global community of allowing that erasure to stand unchallenged? This series does not claim to offer definitive answers to every question. Rather, it aims to chart a path through a fraught historical and intellectual terrain, illuminating how the Semitic identity was constructed, politicized, racialized, and ultimately fragmented. It seeks not to dismiss differences, but to uncover forgotten intersections. I wrote this with both scholarly intent and personal urgency, hoping that in revisiting what has been lost, we might reclaim a fuller understanding of who we are and who we are not. Prologue. In the modern world, few terms carry as much political weight and historical baggage as the word Semite. Once merely a linguistic category, it has evolved over centuries into a marker of racial identity, religious affiliation, and political conflict. But as with many terms hijacked by politics and ideology, its meaning has been so distorted that its original significance, its cultural, historical, and linguistic relevance has been obscured. This series explores the disappearance of the Semite as a coherent identity. It traces the journey of the term from its roots in 18th century linguistic scholarship to its contemporary politicization, particularly in the context of Zionism, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and global anti-Semitism. There is little doubt the rise of the modern state of Israel and the geopolitics surrounding it have reshaped the meaning of Semite, leaving behind a legacy of division where once there was unity. By diving deeply into the historical, linguistic, and cultural aspects of Semitic identity, I hope to reclaim the term from its misuse and explore how understanding its full scope can shed light on the complexity of identity in the modern world. This work is not only a scholarly inquiry into the politics of language and race, but a call for a more nuanced and inclusive understanding of identity, one that transcends the binaries that have long defined the Jewish-Arab divide. Part 1, Introduction to the Concept of Semitism. The term Semite has become so entangled with modern politics and racial discourse that its original meaning, rooted in language and shared cultural heritage, has faded from mainstream understanding. To grasp the disappearance of the Semitic identity, we must first understand how the concept of Semitism was born, how it evolved, and how it became a battleground of conflicting ideologies. At its core, Semitism is a linguistic category. The term was coined in the late 18th century by German scholars to classify a group of related languages, including Hebrew, Arabic, Aramaic, Amharic, and others. These languages, part of what came to be known as the Semitic language family, shared structural features and common etymological roots. The people who spoke these languages were not originally grouped as a race or even as a unified culture. They were simply recognized as participants in a linguistic lineage. However, the 19th and 20th centuries saw a shift. As European colonialism, racial science, and nationalism began to reshape global thought, the concept of Semitism expanded beyond language. It became racialized, transformed from a neutral philological descriptor into a category used to explain, justify, or marginalize entire populations. This shift was not accidental. It mirrored the rise of racial typologies in European anthropology, where language, biology, and culture were conflated to categorize human beings hierarchically. The transformation of Semite from linguistic identifier to racial label gave rise to a particular kind of distorted dualism. On one side, anti-Semitism, targeting Jews as a racialized other, and on the other, a growing silence or erasure around the Arab and broader non-Jewish Semitic peoples. Over time, however, the term Semite became increasingly synonymous with Jewish identity in the Western imagination, to the exclusion of others who equally belonged to the Semitic family. I argue that the loss of the broader Semitic identity is not merely a matter of historical inaccuracy. It has profound consequences. It enables weaponization of identity in politics, obscures shared heritage, and fuels divisions that were not inherent in the original Semitic worldview. Understanding how Semitism was politicized and racialized helps unpack not just the history of the word, but the fate of entire peoples whose identities have been shaped or erased by its evolution. In the parts that follow, I will trace this evolution across time and geography, from ancient Semitic civilizations to modern nation-states, from early linguistic theories to contemporary media narratives. The goal is not to revive an obsolete term, but to illuminate how its mutation reflects much deeper patterns of exclusion, appropriation, and power.
Thousand voices lost in the sand, words carved in stone by a ghostly hand. Echoes whisper through the desert's face. Time hides the key to the sacred place.